my primary person, the one I'm longing for to be my primary person. It looks like they're not here or they're not going to be here. And it reminds me of the way a primary person wasn't here in the past. And so they're going to get threatened, even if they're not conscious of it. And then they'll protest in some way. They're going to be critical, give great advice. You know, there's something you could do to actually make yourself a more present, better listener, like whatever it is, right? But even if it makes logical sense, and it would even be good advice, how this man in this relationship will hear it, your amazing advice is going to land as a criticism on the other person.
This is episode number 558 with Figs O'Sullivan, and we're going to be talking about the one relationship problem that people have, and we're going to talk about empathy, and we're going to talk about how to resolve conflict, all the good stuff. So I'm excited to have Figs O'Sullivan back on the show. He was with me way back when I was on Blog Talk Radio, and we did a live show. That seems so far in the distance right now, but I used to have people show up late for interviews. I'd have people with terrible connections. I would have people call in, prank callers. I mean, I'm really glad we're not doing that anymore. So happy to have you back. And before I bring him on, I just wanted to reintroduce myself. I'm Sandy Weiner. Welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. And to support you on your journey to love, I wrote 2 books. The first one is called Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love. And it's filled with 30 tips and tools to help you grow and communicate better and believe in yourself. And the second book is called Choice Points in Dating. And this book was just published in February of 2023. And this is really about making healthier decisions on our journey to lasting love. So many of us believe we're not at choice. We don't know how to choose. We make our choices based on old programming. And I just thought it was really important to write this book so that we could have exercises to help us make good choices and have happier lives. And both of these books are available on Amazon for Kindle and paperback. This week's tip from the first book is called, from the Woman of Value book, is step number 29, listen to understand. How many of us listen just to be heard? And this is like a Stephen Covey thing, but I think it's just so important to really listen. Very few of us know how to listen. I'm sure this is going to come up in today's conversation with Figs, because listening is part of healthy relationships. And if you can just spend some time this week really just holding your thoughts for another minute and really pay attention to the other person, reflect on what you heard, try to understand them, because we all are not focused on the same things. We're not functioning from the same place. Our brains aren't the same. And so you may be pleasantly surprised that this person who's talking to you has something really important to share. Before I bring my guest on, I just also want to invite you to join my Facebook group. It is called Your Last First Date. We are a unique group in the space of single women. Most of these groups are just unmonitored. And because of that, they're large groups where people go off the rails and all they do is complain, and everybody's there to support their complaints. That is absolutely not my philosophy. This doesn't help you grow. It just helps you to get a lot of stuff off your chest, and then you feel worse in the end. So our group is to support you, to give you tools, to help you be more informed on your journey to love. And so join us at Your Last First Date. And now from my guest, my returning guest, Figs O'Sullivan has spent years working with frustrated couples at a crossroads in their relationships. They want to make things work, but they're stuck in what he calls their waltz of pain. And this is what led him to create Empathi. It's inspired by attachment theory, improvisational dance and theater, experiential psychotherapy, EFT. It provides fun, effective, and simple solutions to help people stop fighting and snuggle more. And what's wrong with that? We all need more snuggling. Welcome back, Figs.
Thank you for having me back, Sandy. Really good to be On with you again. I know we didn't see each other face to face last time, but good to see you this time.
Good to see you too in your tropical environment in Hawaii. Let's start with the big overarching theme of what you do and talk about why couples seem to fight over and over again.
Yeah, from my perspective, there's only one reason really why couples fight, and that's go- just goes back to how we're wired. We're all wired as human beings to need to be emotionally bonded. It's basic attachment theory, and attachment theory is the best theory we have of what love is, and we need to be emotionally bonded from the cradle to the grave. Because if you weren't emotionally bonded to someone from the cradle, you would die. You literally would die, right? We'll die from lack of touch before we'll die from lack of food and shelter, right? So you have to have someone be there. And it's not just like some woo-woo thing that, like, a dingo would come and eat you, right? Some of your listeners are old enough to, I'm sure, to understand the dingo reference, right? Meryl Streep and everything, right? So look, your body can detect when your person, right, your birth mother, primary caregiver, when you're closer to the cradle, when they're not there for you, and so it makes sense from a biological level that you go into a state of threat when it looks like your person is not there, or you're not emotionally bonded, and you protest. Well, when there's a couple, one person's threat and then understandable protest, their protest becomes the threat to the other person, right? Because now when you're protesting, not feeling love, you're actually providing the threat to the other person. So now they feel threatened and now they protest. Both of you make actually complete logical sense that you're both feeling threatened. So of course you're both going to protest in your particular ways. And then you keep reaffirming your worst stories of each other. And ultimately, every single fight and argument that couples get into can be understood when we look at it through this lens.
Attachment theory is amazing. It's amazing science. It was so eye-opening when I first learned about it. If you could give examples for people who aren't really familiar with attachment theory, or maybe even a real life example of this type of fight that you're talking about, and give some context, that would help.
Yeah, so obviously the most common example, let's say stereotypical, heteronormative couple, woman and a man. The woman's sensitivity inside, now it doesn't always have to break down on gender lines, but let's just use this for this example. Woman has a code. The woman in this relationship already has a sensitivity inside about, I'm not going to be prioritized, I'm not special, you don't care about me, and it'll get triggered in the relationship, right? Their partner, new partner, dating partner, long-term partner is going to do something, right? They're going to do something or a series of things that is going to make it look like, oh, it's happening again. I'm not prioritized, right? My primary person, the one I'm longing for to be my primary person, it looks like they're not here, they're not going to be here. And it reminds me of the way a primary person wasn't here in the past. And so they're going to get threatened, even if they're not conscious of it. And then they'll protest in some way, right? They will, and they don't even necessarily notice they're protesting. They're going to be critical, give great advice. There's something you could do to actually make yourself a more present, better listener, like whatever it is, right? But even if it makes logical sense, and it would even be good advice, how this man in this relationship will hear it, your amazing advice is going to land as a criticism on the other person. They have just received the message, I'm not good enough, I'm failing. So they're going to contract. They're in danger. Just like, the woman who at first says, oh my God, it's happening again. It looks like they don't care for me. They're not really here with me. They're not listening. Now the man is like, oh, Jesus, it's happening again. I'm a disappointment. I'm not good enough. And so now they're going to have to do their protest, whether they defend themselves, put a silver lining on what's happening, shut down, dissociate. Where's my fantasy football league? And of course, that way that they protest, even if they're not conscious that's what they're doing, they're trying to survive feeling threatened inside, will now be further evidence for the woman in this relationship. Oh, Jesus, if I thought it was happening again, now I know it's happening again. I'm really not cared for. Now I have to give them even better advice how they could be a better partner, which, of course, you've now threatened the other person even more. And so now they're going to completely go catatonic or defend themselves vigorously. And you, again, that's what I'm saying, that you both end up confirming your worst stories about each other. And it's actually quite sad because you both got threatened because you're actually very important to each other. And it's a complete misunderstanding about yourself, the other person, and what it is you're co-creating with each other.
I can totally picture this example in several relationships that I know of, including one of my own. I like watching some of these really stupid shows about love, about dating, like Love is Blind and Married at First Sight, where people's attachment styles and conflict styles show up so quickly. And you can see the couples who know how to negotiate conflict and how to repair. And you see the couples who are standoffish and completely, it's fractured so quickly. And I was just watching a show about money, some new show on Netflix, and it's all psychology. But I mean, the conversations around money in a relationship. And this one couple I was watching, where she's the breadwinner, he stays home with the kids, and there's so many stuck beliefs between these two people, where she's resentful of him. She thinks she has the ability to spend whatever money she wants. They're really not united, and they don't talk about money nicely. And she's marginalizing him, and he's emasculated, and and you just see these things, and you go like, you guys love each other. How can you repair? So let's talk about repair. Let's talk about how can you make a long-term relationship work? Because so many people are stuck in these patterns. They have insecure attachment styles and all these triggers that come up. What do we do?
Well, so the first thing is being able to see the system that you're co-creating with each other, right? That's always the most important first step, is that you can, because when you're in a relationship, or even when you're not in a relationship, considering your past relationship, you only see it from your own subjective experience. You only see it from the perspective of a part of the system. You can't see it, the entire system, just because, you're embedded inside of it. So the first thing you have to be able to do, both people, right, is, or you yourself looking back at past relationships, right, is you got to be able to have the bird's eye view of the entire system and just fill this in. Like, what are the ways I was feeling not loved? What are the ways I protested? What's the way my protest hurt the other person? And what is the way they protested when they were hurt? And you're going to, both people always make sense. And this is very hard when you're let's say, they really didn't care for me. They really were like a professional fantasy football player. I did not sign up for this. Look, you didn't feel considered. Clearly, even just the way you're talking, you were very upset and mad about it. And then can you imagine what it must be like to be another human being on the receiving end of their partner being that disappointed in them? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize, ooh, that must actually really hurt to be that much of a disappointment. What did they do to protest? Well, they disengaged from me. Logical thing to do. So first thing always is, can you see that it's always a system? It's always a we problem, not a me or a you problem. Now, look, there's exceptions always. If there's domestic violence, if you're at risk of, if you're going to get, you and or your partner, both of you together, are going to get so escalated that you're going to be a danger to yourself or to each other, then you need to work on your own on this. Don't be trying to work on it together. Right? So let's be clear. But assuming that there's no risk of domestic violence, you're not going to exit your window of tolerance in studying the system that you co-create with another human being, that you're not going to get really traumatized to the point that you can't breathe, you can't function. Can you start to see, what is the system that I co-create with another human being? That's the first step. If you can do that, then What does that mean? We have to realize what it means. Wow, the reason I'm so disappointed in my partner is because being cared for them means so much to me. AKA, it's just a math equation, right? I love them. They're really important to me. The other way around, the reason the person disengages from you when you tell them how crap they are as a partner is not because they don't care about you, but because it hurts so much to keep hearing they're disappointing. Why would it hurt so much? They actually love you. That's why it hurts so much. That's why they disengage. Their disengagement actually means something completely different than what you think it means. So you mush all that up together. We have everything we need to actually have shared empathy for each other. It really makes sense that you hurt when it looks like I'm not here. And it really makes sense you feel awful when it looks like I'm not satisfied with the way you're here. How painful and sad for both of us. So that's where we got to get to first. Then if we can get to there, now we could show up and give each other the love that we needed, that we weren't able to give each other when we were in disconnection from each other. I care for you now. I'm here now. Would you let me care for you now? You're enough now. I know I was telling you you're not enough, but you're enough now. And we could hold each other and kiss our little faces and snuggle each other up, right? That's what we want to be able to do over and over and over again to make love and relationship work.
So first recognize the patterns and get the bird's eye view of the system.
Yeah.
And once you understand both of the parties, because you're saying it's not just one person, I think people don't recognize that at all. They just say that person did this to me, and that's a terrible person, or just they need help. I mean, that's a very common thing, is to point the finger at the other person, and then to understand that it comes from love, that this is because we love each other, and then we can repair. I remember when my daughter, who now is 28, but she was going through a really hard time after my divorce. And so she was about 13. And she also has ADD, and she's very reactive. I think that's part of her wiring. And she wouldn't listen to anything I said. She would tell me what a terrible person I was constantly and how I ruined her life. But she would also just leave doors open when she would leave the house and leave her backpack on the floor. And just like, I felt like a total disregard and disrespect. I tried everything in my power to repair this relationship because I wanted to get closer to her, and I could not do it. And so I hired a coach who was a relationship coach to help me help the relationship. And so one of the things she did with me that was really effective was to help me see her perspective by drawing a triangle on the floor, like a imaginary triangle. And one point of the triangle was me, one point was her, and the other was the relationship. And I would stand in each perspective and try to feel whatever the issue was from each perspective. That was such a helpful exercise. It reminds me of what you're talking about, because I could finally stand in her shoes and feel what it must feel like to be in a relationship with me. And also that she wasn't necessarily doing this against me, but she loved me as I loved her. And I was able to have more empathy, to have more compassion. It really shifted my perspective.
That's
really
wonderful.
helpful.
Yeah. Look, by the way, when I train therapists, probably I always say the most important skill, there's lots of important skills. One of the most important skills is you got to be able to become other people. Firstly, you got to be able to become yourself. Most people aren't very good at actually being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's like, you're so stuck in the story that I'm not actually inhabiting my experience. But then you also have to be able to inhabit other people. And that's why I love that exercise, the triangle, right? That you actually physicalize becoming like, this is me, you, this is what it is to be the system of both of us together. And then it's true, then actually the experience of it, that the empathy grows. So like, if you notice, I'm talking about what it is conceptually, but, Sandy, what I love that you brought in, the big shift, the real transformation, is that we take this concept of we are a system, we are both hurting, and we make that a felt experience. And it's a felt experience that literally changes our biology. Right? It actually softens us, right? And makes us able to be engaged with each other as two vulnerable people that love each other. So yeah, the becoming is hard to describe, but I love that example of the triangle. That's a great exercise to do. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was so helpful to me. And I just spent 3 weeks with my oldest daughter in Israel. And we also have a lot of conflict because she shuts down quickly. And I'm just trying to connect, and I feel the defenses go up. And one of the last days I was there, we had a big breakthrough. And I think she finally saw what my intentions were. And I also found that I was talking over her a lot, and I stopped doing that. And we ended up getting so much closer at the end, but it took a lot of work. It's not always easy. And so I think, if a relationship is important to us, it's really important to know that you're part of a system, and that there are ways to connect and to bridge gaps. And we have to be willing to also just take responsibility for what we're creating, because I think so few of us can see that. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts, like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/lastfirstdate to learn more and claim this offer.
Part of why, the order, I often say the order of things matters. It's not a realistic expectation that you yourself or other people are going to be able to take responsibility for their part in a system as the first step in the process. Everybody wants the other person to be able to see what they're doing and take responsibility for their part in something as step one. But it's not safe to do that for that person, right? Because I'm hurting, I'm still protesting, you're still not here. And that's what both people, the more you ask, both people are feeling and thinking, and the more you ask someone else explicitly or implicitly to take responsibility, the more threatened they are. And when we're threatened, we're not available. Oh, let me do some really deep self-reflection right now. Like that, it's just not, it's not even possible.
Yeah.
Right there, you can't expect threatened people to be able to do that. So that's why we got to get to this place where, hey, it's both of us, we're both hurting, we're both protesting in a way that's threatening for each other. We create this place, I call it like Switzerland. You may want to go to Hawaii, but the first thing we have to do is live in Switzerland first. I mean, Switzerland is a neutral country that we both would be safe together in. Right. And most people, they don't want to spend time in Switzerland, despite the chocolate and the cows, and the rolling hills. And right. It's actually lovely. But they want to just go straight to Hawaii. But the more you just try and fly straight to Hawaii, the more you don't make it there. Right. Because you're like everything. And this is no offense. I always tell my clients, look, my clients are not trustworthy. Everything they do to try and make things better is a disaster, right? Again, remember the person like, you know what? My partner's not very good at listening. I think I'm going to buy them a book on how to be a better listener, right? Yeah. That's not going to go well, right? Unless they the person not like, oh, my partner's never happy. Why? I'm going to give them a little space. Not a great idea. Right. But this is the things that people come up with that they think this would be really helpful is usually it's you're actually throwing gasoline on the fire. You're not actually getting closer to putting it out.
No. There's so many things that I'm thinking about, but I wanted to talk about how people communicate with each other and misunderstand each other's needs. And so I'm thinking of a couple that I know where they're at the fairly new stages of dating, but it's moving towards possible engagement. I think that they are very compatible in many ways, but they come from separate worlds. They're an older couple. She was minimized a lot in her marriage. All of her emotions were minimized. It was a really unhealthy marriage. And so she's very sensitive to anybody minimizing her and not letting her voice be heard. In a recent conversation, she had shared with him something difficult from her past relationship, and he went immediately to trying to find the silver lining. And he said something like, "Oh, but there were good qualities about him at the beginning too, right?" And she got so triggered, she just shut down. And she didn't know how to talk to him about it in the beginning. But I'm just curious from your point of view, because this is an example where she just felt minimized and she didn't know how to deal with it. What would you say to a couple like that?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, here's what I hear happen. Now, remember, like you said, with your triangle, there's three entities. There's three entities. We have to understand what happened for all three entities. There's the two individuals in the couple, and there's the system. And the most important is we understand the system. But to understand the system, we got to understand the two people. So here's what I imagined happened, right? So she is a sensitivity, like you said, like already before she even started this relationship. I know the pain of being minimized. There's no room for me to have my feelings. So I already have that sensitivity inside, right? I've no doubt this guy has a sensitivity inside him already before this relationship started. So she shared, like the woman shares something that was important, some emotional experience that was important. It actually touches something in the guy, right? And we could imagine, I don't know, right? It's not okay for someone else to have vulnerable feelings. It's my job to make sure they're okay. There's some little boy inside this grown older man that if someone is having vulnerable feelings, it's really threatening. The world's not okay. Bad things happen. Even he's not conscious about it. I need to put a silver lining on this very quickly. Now, the silver lining lands on the other person. Oh, Jesus, no, it's happening again. I'm being minimized. It's happening again. So now I got to shut down, right? And the little boy like, oh, flipping heck. Like, it didn't work. Right? It looks like they're shutting down. They're leaving me. Like oh no, 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 no. I'm going to have to like now get a much thicker silver lining marker. Right? Oh, I knew my feelings wouldn't be safe in this relationship. Oh, I can't talk to this person. Oh, Jesus. These things are getting even more threatening. It's getting even less okay. Why don't I go get some glitter to sprinkle it all over the silver lining? What a terrible tragedy for both people. They both make sense. When I get a hint I'm being minimized, I get so scared I'm not going to be able to talk anymore. Jesus, every time I think you're not okay, I care so much about you. I try and make it better. But it lands differently, right? Than we both intend. Again, so there's again the punchline of all of that. How sad for both of us. Look what happened. We can't just resolve it from her to him. I need to make sure I'm not minimized. Well, I need you to see that I was actually doing my best to make you feel better. We can't just do one-way fix. Again, because remember, if we do the one-way fix, that request just that you need to stop being a minimizer puts him more deeply into his deepest emotional bonding pain. Right. If we try to get her only to understand, hey, he had the best of intentions of putting a silver lining around your childhood wounding, right? Like that's not fair to her, right? That's not fair to her. It's not. So this thing, we can't do it just one way. We got to do it together. Look how you both actually were trying to survive when you felt threatened inside. No wonder you missed each other. Oh, and get them to live inside of that with each other. Then we can go, look, I do tell me again. I want to hear about your feelings. I won't put a silver lining around it. Well, look, you are enough for me. I do get how much you care. I understand why you would try and make it feel better. And they end up hugging each other and holding each other. That's what we'd have to do.
Yeah. No,
Easy
that makes
peasy.
sense. Right. Easy
But
peasy.
if we could get them to talk to each other in that way, we could like see both of them at the same time.
And you see this show up in every relationship. I have a client who had to move back home with her mother, who they have a very toxic relationship. And her mother's always trying to give her advice, and she doesn't want her advice. And she's so angry because of all the times she was minimized as a child or not given choices, that she's like, I don't want your advice. Your advice has been terrible. And she's just holding on to this.
Yeah.
You're just trying to destroy me. And so it's just, her mother's trying her best. She has no idea how to guide her.
Yeah, but
And
where's it? Let me say one thing, but I kind of withheld saying this earlier. Look, the parent-child thing is a little different, right? Look, all the same things, right? But the final step is different. The final step is different, right? We're not equals. Now, people are going to disagree with this. That's fine, right? Look, it is a system. You're both hurting. You're both protesting, hurting. But here's the deal. I don't care if it's a 90-year-old and a 70-year-old. One person's still the parent and the other person's still the child. When it comes to repair, is a one-way thing. The parent should not be looking to the kid to meet their emotional needs. It's a one-way thing. At some point, you both see it's a system. Like, I feel so minimized by my mother. I just can't take it and I get angry. And the mom, like, I feel so powerless. My given advice is the best I can do. I can see how I end up hurting you and we get stuck with each other. Now, it's the mother's job to show up. Let me be here now the way I wasn't able to be here up until now. Do not expect the daughter to be able to show up now the way she wasn't being able to show up for the mother. It's a one-way thing. It should always be a one-way thing.
And what if it's not? What if the mother never comes to that?
Well, that kid's going to have to deal, right? Like, let's do it in therapy. Let's resolve it imaginally. There's a lot of stuff we can heal imaginally. Like, let's grieve together. Look, a lot of people, they have to come to terms with, that's not going to happen with my mom.
Right.
So we, again, the beauty is there's so many things we can resolve using our imagination, using like the triangle, using, for example, like, psychodrama, gestalt therapy, where let's have a conversation with your mom in, like, where you get up and you take the seat of your mom. Let's have your body, your organism have the experience of this happening. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because when I'm coaching a client and they're stuck in that system, it often shows up in all their relationships. It's not just here. And so it is important to really work through that stuff, because if you're taking that anger and you're bringing it to your dating life and you're bringing it to your relationships and you're still taking it out because you're still unhealed, that's significant. And so you may not be able to repair.
That's great. I love that you said that, because it reminds me, I was saying you do it in therapy, you do it on your own, you do it imaginally. Well, the beauty about a long-term committed relationship is your partner, the terror and the beauty is your partner's going to become that person that your limbic system is just like a naked mole rat, right? It doesn't see, right? Can't really hear, it just really knows touch and smell. And so, like, your limbic system, it doesn't know you're not with your mother in your relationship. It just know, like, I'm with my primary person again. And it's happening again. They're not listening to me. They're giving me advice. Like, you're going to feel all the same things as if it was still your mom. Well, here's the great thing. It's not your mom, because let's say they're here in couples counseling and they're willing to study what is the system, and your limbic system, your attachment system could get the needs met now. We could actually create the missing experience in this relationship that we couldn't create with mommy dearest. Right. And so that's why I love couples counseling, is not just helping the couple. There's a little girl and there's a little boy, or two little girls or two little boys or two little sheep. Right. And we get to actually create the actual missing experience from childhood in this relationship right now between these people. So all we have to do is solve the present moment. This is the crazy thing. We don't actually have to solve the past or solve for the future. If we can deeply resolve a present moment, it actually then infuses the past and our future with this present moment healing.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, because I've heard from many people that I have to be fully healed and whole to be in a relationship. And good luck with that.
Exactly.
But I think what they don't realize is that in a healthy relationship where two people are really working together, that's where you complete the healing, and it's really necessary. So
yeah, it's the most powerful. I mean, parenting, right, and being in a long-term relationship are the most powerful, aka most terrifying personal growth vehicles.
Yeah, totally. So as we come to an end, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone, which is, what are your final words of advice for anyone who wants to go on their last first date?
Just that everybody's good. Everybody's good. They're all doing the best they can. So their worst behaviors are just the ways they protect themselves from being hurt. The minimizer, the silver lininger, the arguer, the shutter downer, the advice giver, the criticizer, they're all just trying to survive. And if you can see that there's two people, there's their reactive self, the way they're surviving self, and it's really annoying to you. Remember, the only reason that annoying part of them is here is because that part was created in order to protect the most vulnerable one inside them. Everybody's good. They're all just trying to survive, just like you.
Doesn't mean you have to date all of them, but
exactly. No, exactly. You're still like, hey, look, I just can't deal with you eating with your mouth open. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. It's okay. Yeah, you don't have to be with them. Like, yeah, right. It doesn't have to be okay with you. Their particular brand of like, I don't want someone playing fantasy football all day. Like, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
right? That's okay. They learned a different way to survive in the world. Bless their little souls.
Yeah. And I think it just brings more compassion to the dating process.
Yeah, exactly.
It's which a lot of people really lose over time, and they think everyone is the enemy. And that's not how we find partnership. So if you go in thinking that people are doing the best they can, and they're not out to get you, they are just trying to protect themselves from getting hurt. And vulnerability is tough for people. It is scary as hell. And Absolutely. So, but it also is the most beautiful thing. And if we can work through those feelings of fear, we can actually get to relationships that are incredible. And so I love this conversation. It's always great to talk to you. Tell our audience one good link for finding you, and I'll put the other links in the show notes.
Yeah, probably the best is just the main website, just Empathi with an I in the end, not a Y in the end.com. And yeah, from there, you can access the free quiz web app we developed for couples. And we have my wife and I have a podcast. We actually talk about we share our own psychotherapy, like couples therapy, where we're the clients.
Ooh.
As well as talk theory and, nerd out on relationships. Yeah, anyway, but empathi.com, everything is on there,
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again. Thank you. This has been a delight.
Thank you, Sandy. So lovely to see you. And thank you so much for having me back. Anyone that would listen to me a second time, like, I really like you. You're in a small handful of people in the world.
Right. It's so hard to listen to you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening. And if you love our show, please give us a great rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And as always, here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application.